Peace and love, everybody. This is AI News with Eric, and once again, I'm glad to be back. I haven't done a podcast in a minute. I have a very, very special guest. You know me; I talk AI news all the time. Today, we're going to be talking about the hidden cost of AI convenience, understanding cognitive depth in the age of LLMs. So, MIT actually did a study recently, and that's what we're going to be talking about. And joining me today is Linda Youssef, a visionary strategy and transformation leader who brings over 15 years of experience orchestrating breakthrough transformations for multi-billion dollar organizations. I want to emphasize that again. 15 years of experience orchestrating breakthrough transformations for multi-billion dollar organizations. And she's here with us, AI Erik. So thank you. What makes Linda uniquely qualified to discuss today's topic is her specialized focus on human-centric and responsible AI development. She's dedicated her career to ensuring that as we advance technologically, we don't lose sight of our humanity. And for those of us AI people who understand what's going on, we do understand that these AI companies, which is basically a handful, are not worried about us losing sight of humanity. And that's one of the things that we want to make sure we don't do. So Linda's work bridges the gap between cutting edge innovation and human potential, making her the perfect expert to help us understand the implications of MIT's latest research. She's not just theorizing about AI's impact on human cognition, she's actively working with organizations and individuals to navigate these challenges while building unprecedented resilience and agility in our AI driven world. Once this is over, she's going to give you her info anyway, but you can connect with Linda on Instagram at IamLinda.WY or through her Substack Inward, where she explores the convergence of technology and human development. So I'm going to bring her up right now. I just had a chat with her. She's amazing. So let's get into it. What's going on, Linda?
Hello, hello. Loving to be here. Thank you for having me.
Thank you. You did have I noticed that you did have some people on LinkedIn that definitely I was like, okay, she's definitely somebody, you know. So today what we're going to be talking about is today we're examining the game-changing study from MIT, Your Brain on GPT. The exact participation breakdown was like we just talked about, it wasn't that big. And that's one
Yeah.
of the problems is, diversity. So, but I mean, we'll take this for now just to have a point to prove to people. You know what I'm saying? There was 54 total participants divided into 18 per group. 18 used ChatGPT 4.0, 18 used search engines, and 18 used brain only. Specific technical details: 32 electrode EEG headsets monitoring at 500 samples per second, which for some people to understand, I think it's when they do the MRIs, it's kind of slower because I think it's looking at blood samples. It's something called uh, MRI, something that they compared this to, which this is way more faster because it's like live, it's real time, you know.
Mm-hmm.
Geographic context, they use 5 Boston area universities, and once again, all Boston. You know what I'm saying? But I'll take that though. I'll take
Yeah.
something, you
Yeah.
know. The timeline was 4 months of monitoring. The precise findings was LLM group showed the weakest connectivity, brain only showing strongest, of course. The switching experiment, 4 sessions results where AI users couldn't quote their own work. You
Not
know what I'm saying?
surprising, but yep.
So the first question is foundation and context. Linda, let's start with the core concept. The
Mm-hmm.
MIT study introduces the term cognitive debt
Mm-hmm.
to describe how repeated LLM use may impair our independent thinking abilities. From your perspective, working with organization on human-centric AI development, how do you interpret this concept and why should leaders, whether in education, business, or personal development, be concerned about this phenomenon?
Yeah, I mean, there's so many facets to consider when, we're in a new era of trying to understand a relationship with all these toolings, right? The LLM model. And, right now there is, or at least for the last 2 years or so, there's been this push of like utilizing efficiency, supporting productivity, and all the facets associated with that. And one of the things we have to consider is, right, like we don't want to forego our sense of agency entirely in the sense of like giving up every faculty of thinking or processing to these models, right? And I think this is what this test or the study kind of highlights, is to say, we have these tools are amazing. However, when we forego our very, the element of like processing and thinking and creativity and give it up entirely to these tools, right? It creates this atrophy. It creates this sense of like we start to diminish or, weaken the, they call it the neuroconnectivity, but basically the important elements that are really, really associated with like intelligence and whatnot when it comes to the human mind. And so when we're thinking about, okay, like, like for example, when an organization wants to utilize AI tools, right? It's not necessarily like training people to just completely use these tools and not think. It's more so like we have to reorientate our focus on like how do we get people to partner with these tools wisely. And this is what the study highlights at the end of the day. And this is why it wasn't necessarily mind blowing per se, but it's reinforcing we need to partner with these tools wisely, but in a way where it's accenting, right? It's amplifying and supporting our creativity, our processing versus taking it over entirely, right? And so, like for example, I know a lot of people call it they've called 2025 the year of the agent, right? Like AI agents and anything along that line. And again, it's more so okay with these AI tools. How do we do it in a way where we're not completely foregoing the importance of the human being being involved in the working environment, right? And this is why I really emphasize it's not about AI taking over everything. It's about how do we coexist with them and we figure out that relationship. And this study, there's an emphasis on the education system, right? Because the added complexity and layer of this is when we think about the workforce for the next 10, 15 years, these young minds are the future of these organizations. They're coming up. And so if we're teaching them to solely rely on these tools? Like, what are their long term repercussions? Like, what does the workforce look like 10 to 15 years from now if they cannot think without the dependency on these tools, right? So that's another thing we have to think about. And I think this study is saying, hey, like, let's slow down and really, really think about how are we relating with these tools, right? So, yeah.
The sad thing, the sad thing is, out from some studies I've seen, only 4% of us actually really understand what these tools are. So when I hear you saying what you're saying, I'm looking at myself as being from the AI companies that's building these models, and I'm looking at it to where's, well, if we listen to her, we're going to build a system where the people thinking it. I believe personally, but I'm saying in short is where I don't think they want you to think. I think they want you to actually rely on these systems because then they'll have more control and then you'll have no choice but to rely on these systems than the ones under you are being brought up thinking that that's life relying on these systems
Mm-hmm.
because and then we're in total control and it's
Mm-hmm.
going to be people like yourself and some other who I call my sheroes and heroes that teach AI but also teach the parts that we're talking about, the discrimination parts, the unethical parts, the redlining, the racism. For me, I applaud people who's teaching the tools, and I do too. And because you have no choice. So to me, we're moving into a world where it's like it might not be as beautiful as we want. It could be. It's just AI. To me, I always say is in the wrong hands. I believe AI is a wonderful tool. I believe it can solve every problem that probably will exist and make people live long. I believe the healthcare system can be rid of discrimination and racism. The banks could be rid of redlining, and like we could live, with equality and alongside AI also,
Mm.
depending who's running it. And I believe that if it's stock markets and shareholders in charge, like, how can it be ethical too? Because the ethical departments are being downsized because they're saying, hold off, you're moving too fast. And they were like, well, listen, they just came out. We got to come out. You know what? Fire five of them. We ain't got time
Mhm.
for that. So I don't think a lot of people really understand what's going on. And I just heard that Facebook said to the EU, we not signing this.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And you raise a lot of good points in the sense of like, you know, I call this era right now like kind of like a renaissance era, right? Like, it's not just AI necessarily being this like new advancement and it's creating a lot of disruption, but it's also asking us to rethink a lot of arenas of how our society is built, right? Like ranging from the economy to like relations, like it's so wide ranging and the ripple effect. And to your point, like I don't think a lot of people are thinking beyond the short term implications or the short-term benefits of utilization and implementation of AI. And so when it comes to folks who are really vested in raising awareness around responsible AI use, right? One of the drivers of that is because we can see the long-term implication from a mile away. We can see like this is if we keep going at this pace, right? It's going to be much harder to reroute and correct when things are more embedded versus this opportunity right now to be at the foundational the foundational levels to really be mindful of how we're thinking. And I can I hear quite a bit of leaders and organizations wanting to remain competitive, right? That competitive edge. So part of that is to be fast, to be the first, to be right.
And
And
that's
I
a
get
problem.
it. I get it. But the difference with this is not just another product per se. This is like the defining moment of what we build now will set the president or basically define the next 10, 15, 20 years, right? And simultaneously, it's also really about okay, if you take it away from, the product or like how it's advancing tools or whatnot, and really think about its impact on the human being and the human experience, right? It's getting further and further into infiltrated in mechanisms that are dictating decision making as a
Right,
human being,
right,
right? And it's like you got to think about if these tools are starting to like create filtering mechanisms and whatnot associated with like how we decide what information we get fed to us that helps us decide. And again, this is not like AI is like the new. It's not like a. It's not necessarily like surprising that element because if you look at the past 20, 30 years, there's been algorithms, there's been like search queries, like these have been all systems that AI is just magnifying these pre-existing challenges and issues, is not necessarily creating it, right? And so, but the difference now is it's when we are working with AI, it's kind of like we're introducing, and some people call it like it's like we're introducing a new species amongst us, right? It's an entirely new intelligence system in the sense of it can actually even be smarter than us. It can replace human beings, right? This is a new era. And, it's to remind people we don't necessarily have a blueprint of where to go, but we can learn from our history. We can learn from we've had hints, right? We've had hints with how social media has affected society,
right.
how search queries have been funneled to like direct people's attention to one set of information versus the other. Like there's so many things we can learn from history. And the other thing I would say too when it comes to protest or pushback with maybe let's say organizations or these big conglomerates associated with like ethics and taking that into consideration is like okay, we're now moving into an era tied to this whole renaissance is like people now are in a world where it's getting harder and harder to trust what they see and what they hear. Okay. So one of the biggest necessities and the things that people are going to yearn for is trust. They're going to look for who can I trust with these companies? Like who are the ones that are putting parameters in to ensure that what they're producing, what they're showing us is trustworthy,
And you
right?
know what though? When I
Yeah.
listen to you though, I know what you're talking about when you say who's the ones that put the parameters. First of all, these people, and I hate to say it like that, they have to get educated. And to me, a lot of them are running away from it because they don't know. They don't seem to care. Everybody keeps saying, my nephew, yo, Eric, man, nobody care. People got to pay their bills, man. Ain't nobody worrying about what's going to be happening from 10 years from now. And yeah, I do understand the reality of this, but I just feel like to me, this is one of the most important things because, first of all, we're talking about a future that they don't even know. You can't tell me one AI company that can say for 100% sure where will we be in 10 years. You can't
No.
show me one AI company that will tell me in 5 years. I know where they want to go, and where they want to go is to a dangerous space.
Mm.
And whoo, it's a dangerous place. And I just believe that education is the key, no matter where it goes and how it changes tomorrow, unless we educate ourselves today and not just on the five top tools, because are the
Mm.
five top tools ethical? Are the five top tools actually helping your neighborhood and your vicinity and your
Mm.
real outcome? You know what I'm saying?
Mm.
Are you prompting correctly? Do you has the people that came in told you what they're doing with your data? Like I told one, I was at a board of education thing recently where I live in Mount Vernon because they have a new superintendent, and I heard everybody speak. And when I got up there, I said, I don't hear nobody talking about AI. And I
Yeah.
told them like in my talking that I believe AI is more important than everything y'all talked about. And they really just ignored me, to be honest with you. Like, yo, we're going to get to it, Bob. Like, the council's here. They hear you. But, we'll get to it. But we got more important things basically to do. And, everybody talks about a budget. But what we're talking about is moving so fast. And like I said, they wanted to put in the big, beautiful bill. The states can't interject for 10 years. And like I said, they don't even know where they're going to be in 5 years. So to say that, so basically you're telling me that for 10 years, you want to give even the new companies, because if you make a bill, it's for the new companies too. And that might make a million new companies want to pop up because they know there's no laws and regulations. So even if they build bad AI, they made a mistake because a
Mm-hmm.
lot of bad AI is in good intentions.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
People
Mm-hmm.
don't understand that. Like a lot of bias and unethical things come out as far as the output because of the wrong model you chose. You didn't have intentions to build unethical. This is like so weird. When you're building this thing, you really got to know what you're doing. And yeah, just to build a model, input, train it, fine tune it, output it. You know how many people can go into that thing and mess that up and bring out unethical, you
Oh
know,
yeah. I mean, it's so there are so many layers to this, and again, it's not necessarily anything new, but it's adding on pre-existing challenges within our society as it is. So all AI do, this is why I keep saying, all AI do is doing ultimately is magnifying all this
yeah.
stuff, right? And when it comes to I was having a conversation with a leader recently where it was fascinating, right? Because I always these conversations are always fascinating, but it was interesting where I was like, wow, there's this continual persistence amongst a number of people, and understandably so, where they are trying to make this new era fit in the old ways of doing things, right? And it creates a, a strong discomfort in a lot of these leaders because it's ultimately, going to push them to admit there's so much we don't know, right? And the way we have functioned a lot in our society, especially a lot of leaders, is they're leveraging the blueprint they do know, right? So we're at this pivotal point where AI is also, on top of everything it's doing ethically and structurally, it's also saying we are also creating a whole entire new world in many ways.
Let me tell you something. You know why that's a fact what you're saying? You know what I keep hearing from all these companies? Oh, the IT department. I'm like, I keep telling them IT and AI ain't got nothing to do with each other. Except IT gotta learn the cloud business and implement it when it comes so it can take its job.
Yeah,
Like IT
yeah.
is going to change. There won't be an IT department in 5 years. That title's going to change. And those IT guys that worked on these legacy systems, if you just keep thinking that that's what all I need to know and not now introduce myself and get certifications in the cloud systems, to implement this new world that's coming, because these legacy systems is out, and so that means you're gonna be out.
Yeah.
So, and I keep hearing all where I live, my mayor, that's all she used to talk about is IT. First of all, even if your IT guy knows AI, that ain't his job.
Mhm.
His job is
Mhm.
IT. So my thing
Mhm.
is that, and so I just said that to build, because that's what the old people keep saying. Everybody old school just don't know AI. Oh, the IT department got that. They don't even got nothing to do with AI.
Yeah, and you know what? It's really, it's kind of level setting, with the conversations I have with individuals. I say like no one really truly knows. Even the people who are saying like there's a level of confidence and certainty, they're invoking. It's like ultimately, let me tell you something. It's still a guessing game, right? And also too, we're not looking at cycles that last 6 months, 12 months, where we can slow down and plan in a linear fact. We're talking about, this is why I say it's like a different way of functioning and commingling with all these toolings in the world or whatnot. Because even if we look at the workplace, even if we look at our way of life, it's like, how do we function in a way where, yes, it's going to be faster paced, but we remain grounded while it moves? And it's really about iterating, failing fast, learning from mistakes, being really, really transparent about, we don't know what we're doing, but we're willing to try, right? And
Right.
and it's funny because I was, another conversation I was having with someone recently was, I kind of, equate it to like the entrepreneurial mind, right? Like entrepreneurs are willing to like dive in, make mistakes, go fast, right? And so if you don't have that mindset, right, and entrepreneurs in many ways are highly creative, right? So highly creative minds, in my opinion, they're probably going to be more comfortable with the level of transformation and change that's going to be
Right,
asked
right.
of us.
Because that's how I, to be
Yeah.
honest with you, me personally, I love it and I hate it.
Hmm.
I love it because of how I am. I'm just a fast paced person. I've been an entrepreneur, even though I work. Because a lot of people, I heard one person say, "You ain't really no entrepreneur if you got a job and blah 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 blah." Listen, I know what I've been chasing for a long time, so you could
Yeah.
tell me whatever you want to tell me. I know I have that entrepreneurial spirit, and I don't even find a lot of people. And I can say this because people know me and they know ain't too many people got my energy. Ain't too
Mhm.
many people my age got my energy. Ain't too many people I know, but the ones that seem to have my energy is the ones whose billionaires.
Yeah.
If I worth 500 million. So I'm like, all right, I know I'm somewhere in line with
Yeah.
making sure I get that check. you know what
Yeah.
I'm saying?
Yeah.
So yeah.
But
And entrepreneurs are gonna win now. They're gonna be the ones that actually win in this new world coming up. The statistics on entrepreneurship, because in the past, even now, entrepreneurs, maybe less than 3% make it really big time.
yeah.
But now in the future, I'm not going to say that statistic will reverse, but I do believe that I always say entrepreneurs, and even Earn Your Leisure talks about that a lot. Big ups to Earn Your Leisure, about entrepreneurship. That's how you have to start thinking, because there are going to be massive job loss, but there are going to be job gains from
Yeah.
AI people. And there's also going to be new worlds created and new things created from people who get involved. That's why I always emphasize we can't just use the tools.
Mhm.
We have to end up building and learning how to build models with these tools and becoming, because let's rewind 2022 and let's rewind 3 years before that when they was building like chat one or two, you know what I'm saying, that came out first. Imagine 30 to 35% of us was involved. Imagine the room did have us in there. Imagine there was diversity, imagine how many more models would have been built up until now from that time by us because of
Yeah.
our genius. DeepSeek popped up, Manus popped up. They got a whole bunch of Chinese models that popped up. Why couldn't that been us making them pop up for less money and less
Mhm.
energy than you guys? We would have thought of this, but we ain't in the room. And
Mhm.
our mindset is on totally other things. Gucci, Louis Vuitton, being in the club, popping bottles. I mean, because I could say this. Like, can't nobody say nothing, y'all. This dude, like, because I lived that life. Like I was there. I did a lot of things that we was considered, to be honest with you. I look at now like we was dumb, we was stupid, but I'm here where I'm at now. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Thank God. But what I'm saying is it's still happening.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
still happening. The median wealth gap is terrible. The median wealth income is terrible. We are at the bottom. And artificial intelligence, what I do love about it and why I got so involved in it is because it is one of the things that ended up moving so fast, even they didn't know doors that will be open because of it.
Yeah. Yeah.
And one of the doors that's open because of it is the opportunity to get that median wealth um, gap to go up. It might not be overnight, but in order to do that, there's only one way. There are
Hmm.
78 million, 80 million. I don't care if it's 100 million, because eventually the number's going to always rise as time goes on. If we are
Hmm.
not 30 to 35% of that number, in 2050, we'll be at zero. If we be at zero, I don't think it's going to be possible for us to ever rise. And that's right around the corner.
Hmm.
When,
No,
when they,
yeah, and just to kind of highlight what you're like reinforcing, it really comes back to, again, like we're in an era where there's a lot of opportunity, like a lot of it can go sideways really, really fast too. But we're at this pivotal time where, you know, first and foremost, anyone who's really like seeing where it can go and veer off in another direction, it's really just kind of like finding it within yourself to speak up, right? And to get really like self educate yourself, like on AI, the fundamentals of it, the responsible implementation of it. Like just lean into your curiosity, because a lot of people will avoid things because it's overwhelming or they don't know, right?
get that, get the book, get the book, The
Get the
Algorithm of
books,
Power.
read the things, right? But yeah, like it's like I grew up with this continually being told to me, like knowledge is power, right? Knowledge is power, and from that, allow it to continually like fuel your curiosity. And so, if anything, I just tell people, look, just start with reading an article. Like start with like if you're curious about like you saw something in a social media post, start with that. It doesn't need to be like you read a 200-page study and you have to try all the tools or anything. Just start with your curiosity. And also too, when it comes to like underrepresented groups, right? One of the things that, to your point, is a concern is like, do we have enough diverse voices in the room, right? We don't want to create, we hopefully, my hope is there won't be a monopoly of subset of just small groups of people responsible for designing the foundations of these things. Because again, like I said earlier, when if it happens in that, if it happens in that way, 10 to 15 years from now, if we go, oh no, this is not good, it's going to be much harder to course correct down the road, because it's going to be more ingrained in everything, right? And there's going to be stronger pushback. And the other thing too is, again, like this comes back to trust. Like it's these tools, if they are designed in a way, and once again, I just want to add the caveat too. Like sometimes the people developing the tools, they're not necessarily always, every single one of them, designing from the perspective of, ignoring diverse voices. Sometimes they just genuinely haven't been exposed, right?
Yeah.
Like they're in a bubble where they think, oh,
I
right?
think you can use Claude as an example of that. But the problem now is I just read an article that Anthropic's talking about. I don't know if I'm not sure if it was like they can't compete. They said money wise, I
Mm,
think, and I'm not sure
yeah.
what that was about. But I know when I read that article, it had something to do with basically we can't compete with OpenAI and and these other models. And I don't know if it's because of us making sure we focus on ethical AI.
Yeah, yeah. And I mean, I think again, like it's conventional, like what we see with a lot of, big organizations and business like mindset. It's like be the fastest, go fast, right? Like acquire the dollars, money, money, money. But at some point, there is going to be repercussions,
Yeah,
right? And to your point, like, yeah, like open AI is at the frontier of a lot of this stuff, and all of these other, there's the Grok and there's Anthrop, like, you know what I mean? But we constantly hear about like the top few, right? And then these smaller companies, we hear about them, but they don't last,
right.
right? And
Right.
so yeah, and
And
so
they get brought up. Of it, a fam, they get brought up.
yeah, and so it's not necessarily like that can be very like yeah, it can be a deterrent for a lot of people being giving up, being like, oh, see, it's
But
just it's
but that's what
happening.
But this is
Yeah.
what's happening
Yeah.
though. This
And
is what's going
yeah,
on
and
now.
it's not like it is happening, but at the same time too, it's also asking ourselves, okay, what are the other avenues we can utilize to still raise awareness, to not necessarily falter and be like, okay, I give up, right? Because if we all give up, they're just going to continue, and then we're going to be basically, yeah, like we're going to
You
be in
know,
many ways
you
screwed.
you
But
know what I'm seeing? I'm seeing
yeah.
commercials now where it's in your phone, but it's making
Mhm.
you feel like it's natural to be in your AIs and Gemini now. So what's going to happen is they're going to try to just smooth it in people's lives where you really don't think about it because it's convenient for you. You could do less thinking,
Mhm.
and all these people talk about ethical AI. I got time for that. I gotta get, I gotta pay my bills. I'm gonna just use whatever they give me. I think that's how a lot of people are gonna look at it. And I see, like I said, I see the little kid toys. They call them the AI companions. One of
Mhm.
them bugged me out because one of the games that it had was a slot machine game. And I was like,
Uh-huh.
why would you give a kid a slot machine game? And I said,
Oh,
okay, so that's preparing them to, a jackpot game. But also, I do know that these little gizmos are going to be looking at these kids' rectum, their eyes, and making sure that they understand their emotions when they wake up, what time they go to bed,
yeah.
everything. But one thing I'm afraid of is they're going to take these little toys everywhere. Some of them are not going to go outside and want to play no more. When they go to the bathroom and take a shower, go take a bath, or they're going to take their gizmo with them when they're changing into their pajamas. My concern is what third parties are looking through those gizmo eyes, those little robot eyes.
Oh, this ties back to what I was saying earlier. Like all AI is doing is amplifying pre-existing challenges we've had for years. Like what you're sharing is very similar issues we've had with the introduction of social media on young people, right? Like the addiction, the heightened anxiety, right? The heightened loneliness. Like people, we are more connected than ever. And we have such a surge of mental health challenges
Yep.
despite being more connected. And
Yep.
so, if we continue on this trajectory, all AI is going to do is magnify this, right? And we already feel like we're at our boiling point. So, can you imagine if we do not stop and pause just a little bit? What is the magnification of this pre-existing challenge that we have already? Like, what does that look like,
Yeah.
right? And also too, like again, like it also comes back to I personally believe, and the conversations I've personally been having with a number of people, like people are really, especially the younger generation, I find it's like connection and trust is huge, right? It's like I need to be, if I'm going to invest in your product or in your brand, I want to feel connected to you. I want to be able to trust you, right? And it's like, so when there is this argument of we got to move fast, we can't really think about being ethical and putting all these guardrails and whatnot in our models. And I kind of push back and be like, okay, but what's going to make you a differentiator in this noise of a world is if you can connect with your audience and they feel like you're trustworthy. You're going to have a much stronger customer loyalty than other businesses that don't care about these things. And so that responsible AI factor is actually a win for a lot of companies, because trust is like, it's a currency that is right now, again, like people are having a hard time, like, can I trust what I read? Can I trust what I see? Can I trust this video? Like, it's people are turning off because they're like, I don't trust any of this stuff,
I
right?
believe
So
power. I know in the internet there was times when it took people to make changes and with protests and things like that. It's power, but to me, it's like when you have, say, for instance, 5 segments of groups of people where three of them at the bottom, money wise, and they have no value, no, because if you have no wealth, you have no power.
mhm,
And I do believe that they look at this and they see that, well, we could do what we want. But the problem to me is they need us. They need black and brown and Latino people in everything, to buy, to
mhm,
purchase, to study, to participate in everything that the world needs to do. And most of the cultures and things they get in life be from us. They
mhm,
need our data. So for me, it's like they know that we won't get together and really make a noise and join together, because we, first of all, they know the divide that we have, and we
Mm,
do have a big divide.
mhm,
Let's not get down to the nitty gritty and like who's really. And then I know there's a conspiracy too, as far as the prisons being built and like all of. There's a big. We could talk about 1,000 things that's actually not bringing us to stick together. We could talk about when Central Park was wonderful and was black, and then they tore that down, and different black homes where people was homeowners, and then banks started redline. Like, there's a whole bunch we do know, and a lot of people give up because of that. They start going back 40 years because redlining. AI been in the bank system. AI been here, this narrow AI, 20 years.
mhm,
Amazon is where it's at because of narrow AI. Sears is where it's at because it didn't join the AI gang. You know what I'm
mhm,
saying? At the same
mhm.
time, Amazon was falling, Sears was up here. Jeff Bezos said, "Well, I'm gonna try this AI thing." Sears said, "I ain't messing with that." And
Yeah,
who look what Sears is now, and look what Jeff Bezos is. You know what I'm
yeah.
saying? And he got 1 million robots, they say now. And if you got 1 million robots, that's about 5 million people out of work. Because one robot could do the job of 5 people.
And yeah, and I think, again, like, there's the other facet of this too, where it's like product orientated AI, right? Like, it's like the robots, for example. And again, it's not sugarcoating. Absolutely, the current work frame of job roles, right, is going to be flipped in many ways. And so we have to be really real. Like, there are going to be existing roles that are not going to exist in 10 to 15 years, maybe in 5 years. But simultaneously, this is the unknown element of this.
Yes.
There's also going to be things that are going to
Create.
be created that
Yes.
we cannot fathom yet. And
Yes.
this is the element that people forget, I think, and again, this is human nature. It's the fear of, this is familiar. I need to hold on to it. And it's like, yes. And so I kind of, I say to a number of people, I'm like, we are inevitably, because of the degree of transformation our society as a whole is dealing with, it is inevitable for us to have a messy middle, because we don't have a blueprint. We're going to figure it out as we go. It's going to look like a hot mess in some ways, right? And in some industries, it's going to be much more messier than
Yes.
others. And
Yes.
then simultaneously too, we got to, the adults who have been in the workforce for like, 10, 15 years, we also cannot forget about the young minds currently in university institutions, right? Especially the ones graduating now in the next 2 to 3 years. Like, they are educated on a system that was set, like, that was preparing them for a world that is not going to exist.
I keep saying that. I keep
Yeah,
telling people that you're preparing these kids for jobs that are not going to exist. We have to change our mind thinking now. There's a
yeah,
young sister I follow named Sinead Bovell.
yeah.
I call her one of my sheroes, and she talks about how like you get born, you get educated, you go to school, you go to college, you go to get a job. You're that whole system you have to forget about. It's
Exactly.
over.
I 100% agree with her. And this is what ties back to what I was saying earlier. We are in this renaissance era. It's not just our workplaces and our companies and our society as a whole. It's going to change to that significant magnitude. But these young minds, the way we're raising them up and shaping them and supporting them, like these institutions that are, supposedly dedicated to shaping these minds and preparing them for the world, it's like they also have to change the whole infrastructure of learning. And
Right.
it's really, this is the messy middle. And one of the areas that I see, that I anticipate it's going to continue to look really messy before it shapes up to make sense, is education institutions. Because can you imagine the pressure of, oh wait, like, how do we design curriculums? How do, even the institution of class, like everything, how does a professor, teach a young mind and prepare them for the future world, because they also don't know, right? So it's one of those things where, and I think this MIT study kind of highlights that too, to say, we can't also just say, hey, just use this tool to write things. It's
So
like,
that's one of the that's one of the things I'm afraid of.
yeah,
And these are one of the, and I told the superintendent and anybody I talk to who deals with education, I talk about is that's what I'm afraid of. So what I did was with Manis, and me iterating a lot, I put together a 6 month AI curriculum for 4 to 6 graders, 6 to 7th graders, and 8 to 9th graders. Maybe an hour for the 4th to 6th, hour and a half, and then 2 hours for the 8th to 9th graders. 3 days a week. And, you know, I'll give you an example. You could take the 4th to 6th graders and we can just talk about machine learning and use cats as example. Make it fun. So what you do is you make it fun. You make it on their level. It could be done, but the thing to me is the critical thinking part to make sure they keep those neural networks firing off. And we're gonna get to the second question. See how we almost off the whole thing.
We're
You know,
flowing. We're
I
flowing.
know. So I'm afraid that you're going to have third party companies that don't know nothing about the median wealth and the median income. Why? Because theirs is fine. You know what I'm saying? And they coming over here to get a check. So their concern is just to teach you the basics of what you need to know to teach these kids the basics of what they need to know. But when it comes time to them really understanding what's going on and using AI to make sure you get smarter, not dumber, because we know that the first way they're going to use it is to get dumber. I'm going to give you an example. I use this tool called Prompt Perfect. And what I like about it is it gives me perfect, feedback, your prompt, and save prompts. I mean, save prompt and then your prompts. And what I like about it is if I prompt something, which more than likely, if I don't understand prompting, is going to be a vague prompt, you hit feedback and it, what I like about it, it gives you the first thing it gives you is a good part of what you've done with the prompt. But then the next three things is things that you should have done with the prompt. To me, most people won't read that. So that
Mm-hmm.
means you ain't firing off nothing.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I like to read the feedback. I don't as much as I did because I kind of understand prompting, but I always read the prompts because what
Mm-hmm.
happens is hit prompt because what that does is it perfects your prompt. And at the same time, I find myself always having to iterate that too because that doesn't always come out exactly. But most people are not going to iterate. Most people ain't even going to read it.
Mm-hmm.
They're just going to
Mm-hmm.
hit send and look at their results. And most people ain't even reading all the results because they just want to print something fast. And that's what I'm afraid of too. These third party companies are going to be coming in, teaching you how to do it, but not teaching you how to think and get as smart as you're teaching this robot to be. Because that's
Yeah.
all you're doing is you're teaching. I don't care. People always look at robot thinking in the form of walking on like a robot. A robot could be anything. A robot could be, I could make this a robot. This could
Mm-hmm.
be a robot. You know what I'm saying? So many things like so my thing is we better wake up, man, because I don't want these third party companies to be coming in and grabbing our money and then making our kids dumber. Because
Yeah.
it's two
Yeah.
ways. You either get smarter, you get dumber.
Yeah, and it's there's many ways that I have personally seen in the last 2 3 years where people have kind of taught AI, and there's the tool aspect of it where it's like, okay, I'm going to just teach you step by step how to use this tool, right? And we're moving in an era, I mean, personally, I hope so, where we're realizing it's not just about teaching people how to use the tool, it's also how to relate to the tool, how to utilize it in a way where we're not completely like basically foregoing our sense of agency and our ability to like think and critical thinking, to your point, right? And so it's the relational aspect. And then the other aspect of it too, it's like, how do we set up, especially young minds, right? How do we set them up to also be more resilient in this new world, right? And this is not, and again, it's not just young minds, it's also the adults in the room and the people in the workforce too. It's like, we also have to have a different level of adaptability muscle, resilience muscle, to be able to like function in a new way of working and being. And so this is the human side of it, right? So you have these two things that are needed. It's not just the intellectual, like, how do I use a tool? It's also like, the how do we connect with these tools? How do we connect with other people in the world? If we have, like, let's say to your point earlier, like, if we have a robot being a mediator in discussions, or like if agents are talking to each other and shopping on our behalf, or if people have like, you know, um, what do you call it? Like, AI fake people or whatnot. I forgot the name, but like basically like the individuals, like if we don't have humans connecting with humans and we are foregoing that type of connection and giving it all to like AI models, it's like at the end of the day, um, there are other ways of relating that we have to kind of strengthen and enforce. And also, too, we also have to partner with young minds in a way where it's not necessarily like the adults in the room know more, right? It's like, how can we co-create with, like, they young minds see things that we do not see, and we can't assume we know all or what's best for them. It's like, have them be a part of the discussion in shaping the new world and ideating, right? That's part of building their adaptability and resilience, to be like, I'm not going to just tell you how to be and teach you things. You're going to be a part of your learning, your own learning experience. And I think this is what AI, the AI world, is doing. It's saying how we build intellectual capacity is also going to be very different. And so that's it's like, there's a whole 360 different way of functioning and being in this world. And at the same time, too, to your point, it's also being mindful of what can we learn from our history that has been like a hot mess, like, whether it's like bias or unethical things. Like, how do we ensure to a best of our ability?
They don't seem to be worrying about. They seem to be riding towards the history that we have had and seen, and the movies we've watched and seen. It's
Yeah.
like we're heading right towards that ending.
Well, and you know what? Like, as and that's the thing. I think the major component is not pretending it's not heading in that direction, right? Because some people are also arguing, "Oh, we're not doing that. We're
Right,
fine," right? They're just.
right.
It's like, no. The first thing is just, let's be real. If we
You
continue
got
that
you
trajectory,
got the Godfather of AI, Jeffrey
yeah,
Hinton. You got Mo Gadot. These are the builders of this thing. You come on,
yeah.
man. You got. Let's not name the names. The book I'm reading now, Karen Ho, The Empire of AI. Come on, like what?
Let's listen to them. Let's listen to them, but also, too, let's do it in a way where it doesn't necessarily stifle invention or innovation.
Right, right, right.
Yeah, it's
Just know
important
there has to be
consideration.
balance. So one of the when you said they have to ask questions, one of it is what's the trade off? You know what I'm saying? And what can I do? Because one of the trade offs is your cognitive abilities more than likely will go down if you do not use this correctly. Now, using it correctly will probably produce when it comes to time, because say for instance me and someone else who's trying to put together the same thing, when say for instance he's not using his cognitive abilities, it might he probably could do this in 2 hours where it
Mhm,
might take me 3 hours
mhm,
or
mhm,
even three and a half, because I have to use my cognitive abilities in this. I have to fire my neural networks off too. And I understand this, but at the same time, I'm getting smarter, because when
mhm,
it comes time to being around a human, my conversation is much better than him, because now this guy's going to get stuck eventually.
mhm,
And then
mhm,
when it comes time to someone saying I'm a professional in something, and the lights go out and the cameras go out and the plug sockets go out and you have to just freestyle, you ain't gonna know nothing because you really never learned nothing.
exactly, and that's what the study essentially, and this is why it's not necessarily surprising, but the atrophy aspect is, if we're not using that muscle, it's eventually going to die off, and that's human 101. If you
Oprah
don't
said,
work out.
Oprah said, I hate to cut you off because you
Yeah.
keep saying that muscle. You know, Oprah said what the AI special she had with all the AI companies, we have to create a new muscle now to distinguish fake and real. Because you keep talking about that
Yeah.
muscle. We have
Yeah.
to create these new muscles in our head. In order to do that, what do you have to do? Think.
Exactly. Critical thinking. And this is why it's twofold. It's, we have to sustain the important faculties we need to have critical thinking. And simultaneously, we also have to be, and this is why I come back to the adaptability factor, because the more adaptable we are and the more resiliency we have to being more adaptable to change, the more open-minded we are, right? Because fearful people are narrow minded. They want to hold on to the same. They don't want to be open minded, because then that means introducing or connecting them to things that they don't know, and
Right,
that freaks
right,
a lot of people out, right?
right.
So it's
Yeah.
it's very intertwined. But again, like, this study really highlights to say, hey, it's not about foregoing the use of AI. It's more so evaluating how we're utilizing it, and also at the same time, too, in our utilization of it, coming back to what are the important elements that make us a human being that we need to sustain while we like,
Right,
support innovation,
right,
right?
right.
Because we are sense making beings. Like, we have to be a part of creating something for us to feel like we have meaning and purpose. If we are not, it's like, and I think the study also alludes to this in many ways. It's like, we potentially can create like even more mental health issues. Imagine, okay, if people don't have to work, if they don't have to create things, if they're just like, what is my purpose? Like, what do I do if all these robots and agents or whatnot are doing everything, right? So that's another element that, and that's a whole other thing that we have to be mindful of as well too, that there are repercussions if we just give, again, these tools, hand everything to them, and that's not the intent in my opinion. But
Mental
yeah.
health things. When you said mental health things, I can see these companies building these AIs be the same companies or the same investors that's building, because they know the mental health issue will go up. They can make money with it. I think if they see that they can make money in this mental health world, billions of dollars on top of making billions of dollars on us using AI. So basically, if they could create, not solve the problem, but create a false illusion of you thinking it's being solved, because now I'm gonna make you go to therapy forever, but I'm gonna still make you use my tools.
Absolutely. And you know what? And part of that is there, organization or company that is vested in going in that route, they're also simultaneously very, very invested in ensuring that people are not informed. And so this is why I say knowledge is power, because
Yeah,
first, and I really, and again, this, I really, really encourage everyone, just really keep yourself informed, especially like, it doesn't mean you have to stay on the pulse of everything, because the AI world, you cannot keep tabs on everything. It's absolutely like your brain will blow, right? But it's more so like, start with your curiosity, but staying informed allows you to have a stance and go, okay, start questioning things, right? To have information in your back pocket to be like, do I take what they're saying to face value? Well, no, because I actually read this. And, it creates a discourse of like different diverse vantage points. And what they are potentially relying on is people will not have access to that information. So that they might, hide it, or
yeah,
hope that people will just lean on them for information. And this is why, again, knowledge is power, because I encourage everyone, get, if you're interested in anything AI related, call it upon yourself to not just listen to one voice. Listen to multiple voices, read multiple books on that topic, and then draw your own conclusions and then bring that to the table. Like, that will be your superpower in this era. And that's part of adaptability. That's part of building resilience in a world that's going so fast that, it's like
yeah,
information overload, right? So that,
yeah.
that's
There's
something I
so
would
many
highlight.
there's so many aspects to AI: critical thinking,
Mhm.
being a mathematician, understanding science. Um, there's a whole bunch of things that you can learn besides just particularly knowing AI that will
Absolutely.
keep you in the game, because entrepreneurship, to me, are going to be the winners. I believe that critical thinkers are going to be the winners. That little kid outside playing with sticks and building blocks, and the kid inside on Roblox. Yeah, the kid outside is going to still have to be on his little laptop and FaceTime sometime, but there has to be strategic balance moving up. And parents are going to have to understand this for themselves too. Shoot.
Mhm.
But it's that kid who's going to be outside that's going to be the one that's going to win, because the one that's just tied and stuck to his screen, he's going to be, yeah, a cash cow for them, because he'll be more in control. But that kid out here, he might can create a model that can solve problems, because I believe the win is, if when you got 100 million jobs that's going to be going, there's going to be a lot of problems. So people need to start sitting back analyzing, well, how can I solve this problem? You know what I'm saying? I used in my book like a dog collar. I know they have those, but I ain't talking about those. I'm talking about one in particular where the dog would know what to do, because it's one beep, two beep, three beeps. He'd know to come back to you. He'd know to, like, because of AI. And you're just getting an alert, like, I mean, there's so many fabulous things that can be created with simple thinking and saying, all right, I'm creating an app. And, but my problem too is copyrights. Like, where are we
Mhm.
going with that? Like, there's so much that us people, as far as educators and people who we learn this thing, we don't even know. They don't even know. And if
Mhm.
you
Yeah,
take everybody's copyrights, it's like, boy, like, what's left? You know what I'm saying? So
yeah,
look,
yeah.
we at 55 seconds. I'm gonna pass two, three. but I'm gonna get because I love the flow because it was natural. But I
Yeah.
have to ask a couple of more questions. So what I'm
Sure.
gonna do is because we kind of covered and two was the neural evidence deep dive. The three was the learning and development crisis. Four was the paradox of convenience versus capability. We kind of covered those,
Yeah.
practical solutions and responsible implementation. So I'm gonna go to the next two, which is the last two, the broader societal implications. Looking at the bigger picture, the study focused on essay writing, but we're seeing LLMs integrated into everything from coding to business strategy to creative work. If we're potentially creating a generation that struggles with independent thinking, memory formation, and sense of authorship over their own work, like we just see how things fall into place. What are the societal implications? So, how do we prepare for a future where human cognitive abilities and AI capabilities need to coexist and complement each other?
Yeah, and you know what? I have to agree with what this study kind of alluded to in a strong way is really rethinking our relationship very early on with how we utilize these tools. And it really comes back to, from a simple standpoint, is really protect your creative and critical thinking aspects of like for example, like if you're writing a paper or an essay, right? Some people might just start with a prompt and have it write it for them, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's actually no, actually you draft it first. Okay. You draft
Mm-hmm.
it first, you come up with the ideas, you brainstorm, and then you partner with AI to be like, okay, now you're my partner, you're my collaborator. How would you advise for me to refine this to
Stop
make
right
it?
there. Stop right there. And I'm gonna intervene. You know why, y'all? You know why she's saying this? Because my lazy butt the other day took 5 times to get a simple result. I was so frustrated with the GPT I was using. It took 5 times. But you know the problem with the 4 times that it cost me tokens. So
Mm,
mistakes are going to cost you.
yeah.
Understand that. So you put it
Mhm.
on paper first, figure it out, then put it in AI because maybe it might take you 2 times. But to
Mhm.
cost 5 times, if I make a mistake, and you know what the end game was? It was really me. I didn't prompt properly. It
Yeah,
was me.
but one thing I like about, the prompt avenue is it also kind of gets us to think about what are we asking the model to do, right? So when people
Right,
try to put one prompt in, and they're like, "Oh, this doesn't work," or I'm
right.
like, "No, but that's part of the whole collaborating. It's your fine tuning." But the added element, again, like that the study kind of, alludes to in a very strong way, is to say, but also don't forego the whole process, right? If you want a true collaborator, like think of like an assistant. You wouldn't hand in as a director your assistant to just do everything for you, right? You probably would get the assistant to like, okay, I wrote it by pen on paper. Here are my ideas, make it pretty in a PowerPoint presentation, right? Or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
So it's kind of like protect the mechanisms and the faculties of creativity within you. And
Right.
for everyone, there is nuances to what that looks like. But ultimately, again, this is how you, at this point, I mean, things could be different in 2 to 3, 5 years, but at this point, this is how you can, in a very simple way, really in a responsible way too, like um, partner with these tools
Get
effectively
smarter.
without. Yeah, exactly. So this is a great way to partner with it without foregoing a lot of risk around critical thinking because it still relies on you to foundationally build it,
If we
right?
making them smarter, so to me, they I've been told when I was younger that we got 21 layers of brain. I might be off with numbers, but they say the smartest person uses 7. To me, I
Mm.
don't care if you use 3. To me, this can maybe get you to use 4 and then 5 because when you start firing these things off, you're growing. What we got? What 800 and something billion neurons or something? You
It's a
know,
lot. Yeah,
in
I
your
don't remember
head.
the exact
I
number.
don't know
Yeah.
how many you're using, but probably not a lot. You know what I'm saying? But that's because we've been trained. And we've
Mhm.
been, in my book, I talk about some of the solutions as far as building models, and I put all religions together: Buddhism,
Mhm.
Christianity, Islam, just different Africanism religions, because they all have morals and ethics and involved. And I just believe that we have to take different aspects of life and build these models so they just can't be ethical because what's ethics when you got
Mm,
one group over here and this group over here? Like, you put 10 groups and 10 people in the room, you got some people that feel like rats are godly,
mhm,
and some
mhm.
people are like, that's not ethical having no rats running around. So what's ethics, and how do we have a balance when we're trying to cater to everyone? You know what I'm
Mhm,
saying?
mhm.
I know that will be difficult, but to me, in order to just don't blow up the world, it has to be.
Yeah, yeah, and I mean, to your point, yeah, it's about having different perspectives in a room, right? And like, and have surfacing their perspective, like their vantage point, because we all could be looking at the same thing but have a different belief or understanding of that very same thing, and I think that's very important to have all of those voices heard, and when it comes from a data perspective fed into these machines so that it can kind of go, oh, okay, humans don't
Yep.
just think this way, they could potentially think this way, this way, this way, this way, this way too, right?
Right.
And so that's part of the whole responsible AI facet of things, but yeah.
Especially
Yeah.
building robots that we're going to be living inside side by side.
Yeah.
So this is my last question.
Sure.
Call to action and future vision. You work with leaders to build resilience and agility in an increasingly complex world. Given
Mhm.
everything we've discussed about cognitive depth and the hidden cost of AI convenience, what's your call to action for our listeners? How can they start making more international, intentional choices about AI use today? And what vision do you have for a future where humans and AI truly complement each other rather than AI replacing human cognitive? I know you kind of just said that, but say it again.
Yeah. Yeah, honestly, it's really, and I think this is, large facets of this kind of gets lost when when a lot of people think about innovation and moving forward in a very fast pace, but ultimately there is value in a lot of foundation principles when it comes to like business. So for example, like coming back to intention, right? Coming back to understanding, why are you doing the very things that you're doing? A lot of people are creating these tools and moving ahead, but they don't even know where they're going, right?
Yeah.
So it's like, can you just pause a little bit and ask yourself, why are you even spending all this money on this thing? Are you is it because your driver is to remain competitive and be first? Or is it because you truly want to build something that's of value? Because that's going to have longer, longitude, right? Longer building power.
That was supposed to be the intention.
Yeah, it is,
Open
but
AI.
and it's a reminder, right? Have a North Star in mind. Keep at the forefront of every discussion, especially in this AI driven world. Like, what is the problem that you're trying to solve, right? And these are principles that are through and through a lot of, good business motto or whatnot, right? And then also too, like there again, you also want to, in this grander AI space, it's like, how can you cultivate spaces, whether it's in organizations or even outside organizations, where there is a sense of safety to have diverse vantage points and different ways of thinking, different ways of being, failing fast, doing things in a way where the leader doesn't necessarily have all the answers, right? Like, how can you lean on your team, people maybe who are 20 years younger than you, to be like, what is your perspective on something that I'm supposed to do, right? So
Yeah.
just be really, like, just open minded from that standpoint. And then that ties into flexibility. That's going to be huge. Be flexible. Like,
Yeah.
being rigid in this world right now,
Yeah.
some people will go from the perspective of, well, rigidness means safety. No, actually, flexibility and making people feel safe to be flexible is really, really important in this world, because you're going to learn a lot by doing, right? You're going to learn a lot by, trying different things. And it also builds a resilience of teams and individuals, and flexibility to like handle and endure change, right? Flexibility is a huge cornerstone of that. And reframing challenges as opportunities for growth, right? This comes back to the human element of change, right? You can't grow unless you're willing to like try hard things and be
Yeah.
flexible, right? So
Yeah.
that's very important. And then also too, like, really, the other element of a lot of the work that I do is like, from a human being perspective, is like, prioritize your well-being, like don't burn yourself to the ground, right? Like take care of yourself as a person. It's not just about staying abreast of things. You're actually going to be much more attuned to the world if you have great sleep, if you have, you're feeding, your sense of being in all the right ways. And
Get
then
the
like
spirit right.
exactly, right? Like, and people think it's about like working 24/7, and it's like, no, you're not any good use if you're burnt out,
Yeah.
right? So
And I do like that part about we do 4-day weeks. I believe that
yeah,
will happen.
yeah.
So yeah, you got to get your mind right and your health right. You have to think different in this new world we're moving
Hmm.
into. Some would say new, some would say it's been here, but this AGI world is new. This
Yeah,
trying to build a sentinel
absolutely.
robot is new.
Yeah, and the last point I will say too is I think in this world kind of ties back to what we were saying earlier, because right now we're in an era where a lot of people are having a hard time trusting what they're seeing, what they're hearing. Like leading with authenticity, right? And is really essential, right? So your willingness as a leader to be vulnerable, admit uncertainty, asking for help, right? Like these are like human like elements of like great authentic nature. These are the forefront of qualities that are going to be necessary, and also at the same time too, just prioritizing like how do we build trust by being real, right? But by we don't have all the answers, and that's okay, like you know what I
They
mean.
ain't
But
got all the answers.
no, and it's not about perfection, it's about we're figuring it out as we go and
Yeah.
bringing
Yeah.
people in the fold, right? So yeah, yeah.
So for everybody listening, when she say we ain't got all the answers, just know that's okay. You know why? Sam Altman, all these other guys, Elon Musk, everybody building all these AI systems, they ain't got the answers neither. They
Yeah.
are going along with the flow of how it go. But the
Mhm.
problem is it is moving very, very fast. So I want to say thank you. Don't go nowhere. I'm gonna put you down, but I'm a to do the episode closing, but don't go nowhere. But what I want you to do is I want you to tell people how to get in touch with you if they need to. I want to say thank you. First of all, I think this was a dope episode. You know what I'm
Yes.
saying? We definitely gonna push this joint out there, and we definitely got to collaborate on some stuff. But I am gonna just have you say, to the people how to get in touch with you. Once again, I want to say thank you.
Yes, no, this was wonderful. Thank you for having me. So some of the ways right now that you can definitely stay connected. I'm on LinkedIn, so Linda Yusuf there. You can also join me on Substack, my Inward newsletter there. And again, as Eric mentioned earlier, it is really focused on the interconnection between technology and the humanity as a whole. And I'm really diving deep and sharing perspectives on that. And on Instagram, I am LINDAWY. So you can find me on there too. I'm always like, what is it? And I'm also going to be, I'm going to be launching a lot more things. Like, a lot of people have asked me, like, I would love to find ways to strengthen my ability to handle change as a human being and adapt better and all the things. And I'm like, absolutely. So I'm going to create programs on that. And I'm in the near future, possibly a book. So yeah, so it's exciting times. So, but thank you again for having me. This was a pleasure.
Don't go nowhere.
Yes.
So I want to say, y'all know we got the book, The Algorithm of Power, How Artificial Intelligence is Reshaping Society, Equity, and the Future of Humanity. Um, this conversation highlights why AI literacy isn't just about learning to use new tools. It's about understanding how these tools are changing us and making conscious choices about how we want to evolve alongside artificial intelligence. The MIT study serves as a crucial wake up call. Convenience comes with cognitive cost, and we must be intentional about preserving our human cognitive capabilities, even as we embrace AI's benefits. So we have to wake up. We can't just be using this thing and getting dumber. So at AILiteracy.biz, this is exactly the kind of situations we deal with, evidence based understanding. We're committed to providing to all communities because true AI literacy means not just knowing how to use these tools, but understanding the deeper implications for human potential and making informed choices about our technical future. So once again, y'all know we got the YouTube page, youtube.com/that AI Erik. Like, share, subscribe. Once again, thank you to everyone, particularly Linda, for sharing her knowledge. So once again, thank you, y'all. Peace.